We can be getting our Bibles open. We're going to be talking today, continuing our series about cities. We've been doing that the last couple of weeks. We talked about Babylon. We talked about Jericho. And today we talked about Jerusalem. And just by way of review, our God is an urban God, meaning that He loves cities. He's out there in the country as well, but He really has a thing for cities. And we're going to talk today a little bit more specifically about His love affair with Jerusalem. And I don't know if you remember, but we talked a little bit about this idea with cities and how 5 million people a month more are moving into cities. Every 4 weeks, more and more people are moving into the city. And I don't know why that is, because there's so much space on the planet, they can go wherever they want. I don't know if you realize this. For those that were here earlier, you realize that there's enough room in Texas for all of humanity to fit inside of it.
Crazy.
So every single person that lives on the face of the earth can move to Texas, and each one can have their own townhome. All right, that's Dr. Edward Glazer, if you want to argue that. He's from Harvard, so get your stats ready. 80% of Americans live in 3% of the United States. Let me say that again. 80% of Americans live in 3% of the land of the United States of America. And you guys are part of that 3%, right? Because you live in New York, right? So we're here. I don't know why, but there's a magnetism about the city. The whole world over is with that as well. Now, this city in particular is a little bit different. It's probably the most fought-over city in the world in history. There's so much strife that has happened. And, there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, it's strategically positioned. It's flanked by, on one side, the Mediterranean Sea, and on the other side, you've got the mountains. You can see here in this video how strategically positioned it is through land and through sea, as a port through one to the other, and the surrounding countries around it. It's a very important place strategically to have. Once you get in closer, you see it's not that big. It's 44 miles throughout the whole country. The city itself, the old city, is only about a square mile. And all the different wars it has seen over the years, the different times it has come under siege, if you add it all up, it was destroyed twice completely. Wow. It was besieged 23 times. Here's a list of all the different empires that ruled it from 2000 BC to 2000 AD. It's been attacked 52 times. It's been captured and recaptured 44 times. Wow. It's been through a lot. If you just read through the account in 2 Kings, chapter 11 through chapter 15, you'll see all the different leadership changes, even just in Israel. You've got this king who rules for a few years, and then he's assassinated, and another king comes. And if you just read 2 Kings 15, 10 different leadership changes happen in one chapter. One guy only gets to rule for 1 month. 1 month, all he gets, and then he gets assassinated and replaced by another guy. So many different changes in this one city. If you look at it today, the city is split, the old city especially, is split into quarters. And you got the religious quarters, the Jewish quarter, the Muslim quarter, the Christian quarter, and there's an Armenian quarter as well. There are 1,200 synagogues, 158 churches, and 73 mosques within the city. The city is filled with conflict and has been for a long, long time. As we were talking about the topography of it, it's strategically positioned. There's valleys on all the different sides of Old Jerusalem. And here, you can see in Acts 25 and in Acts verse 7 and verse 9, it talks about going down from Jerusalem and up to Jerusalem. This is all over the Bible, meaning both literally and spiritually, you would have to make a climb up the hill to get to the city. And if you're leaving the city, you go down. It's literally a city on a hill. Valleys surrounding it. And you can see here, I think this is from the east side, from the Mount of Olives, looking over the valley. And then you can see the Dome of the Rock and the western wall there, and how it leads into the city on this side. But you can just see one vantage point looking into the city. Here's an old drawing of how the topography might look if you draw it out, particularly the old city itself. And I think we were over here looking on that last picture. And you can see all the valleys. As the Himon Valley comes into the Kidron Valley, and up here, it's a city on a hill. So when you listen to Jesus say, "You are the light of the world, a city on a hill cannot be hidden," that makes a little bit more sense if you live in Jerusalem, right? So he wants us to be visible as children of God. There's three things I want to talk about with regards to this great city. Before that, I want to let you know about my parents. My folks, they do a tour out there. They used to do it every year. My dad is a professor of history, and so he'll lead the tour and take a bunch of students or people that are interested and walk through the city and all of its biblical history. And they decided to go out in the Judean desert, probably somewhere near Jesus was tempted by the devil. And they got on the camel, and my mom, who's Jewish, brings her kazoo wherever she goes because she likes to blow kind of like the shofar, like the Jewish horn, at different times in her life. So she always has one of these little kazoos on hand. And so here she is blowing her makeshift shofar as they get on the camel, and my dad tolerates it as he always does. Here are my parents near one of the outside walls. And you can see some of the ruins of the old city. I talked to my dad last night and just asked him about all of his travels there. I said, what is it about this city? He said, I don't know, but there's definitely something that I feel when I'm there that I haven't felt anywhere else in all the places I've been around the world. There's something special about Jerusalem. Point number one, want for the city. Want for the city. This is about God's love affair with one city. You know, it's in the Bible, this word Jerusalem, the city name, over 800 times. Can you guys guess how many times the word love is in the Bible?
500.
700. So the word Jerusalem is in the Bible a lot more than even the word love. And the Bible, of course, is all about love. So God has this amazing love affair with this city. If you look at 1 Kings, I'm just going to put some scriptures up here for you. In 1 Kings 11:36, it says, I will give one tribe to his son, so that David, my servant, may always have a lamp. Always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city where I chose to put my name. In Psalm 125, verse 2, it says, as the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people both now and forevermore. It's like it's specifically positioned in its geography so that the mountains give Jerusalem a big hug from God. Even the placement of the city is so specifically positioned. In Psalm 137, in verse 5 through 6, it says, if I forget you, the psalmist says, if I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skill. May my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth if I do not remember you, if I do not consider Jerusalem my highest joy. And consider this place, the house of God, the temple, the place where God dwelled and made his people known. And so it was a special place for them in their hearts as well. And finally, in Psalm 122, verse 3 through 7, it says, Jerusalem is built like a city that is closely compacted together. Remind you of any city you might know? That is where the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, to praise the name of the Lord, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. What a prophetic prayer that psalmist was able to write as the city had gone through and has continued to go through so much strife. You know, do you love your city? Do you have a want? Do you have an inner desire that you can it's almost hard to explain why you love your city so much? And maybe at times, and I'm sure the people living in Jerusalem also had trouble. It's crowded, this is a problem, or man, the trains just aren't working like they really should, and all that kind of stuff. The camels, I don't know where the camels are today. No camels. There are times we struggle, but is there a desire, as the psalmist recalls, for the city?
Come on, John.
Do you believe that God resides in the city? You know, we don't have a temple per se. We don't have what they had 2,000 years ago. Of course, they don't have it now either, as it was destroyed in 70 AD. But do we believe that God's presence is among us? Do we believe He's here with us now? You know, I love Manhattan, but I didn't always love Manhattan. Anyone can relate to that? Yeah, a whole bunch of hands went up right there. You know, I remember first considering whether or not we were going to move here and praying a lot about it and thinking, am I really considering this? Because the first few times that I was here, I really was annoyed. I really was annoyed by the crowds. I felt like people were rude. I felt like it was hard to get around. I'd ask one New Yorker for directions, and they would give me one thing, and then the next New Yorker would give me directions to somewhere else. And I thought, well, who's right? And they both would argue each other. I just had such a hard time figuring this place out when I was visiting. And I just said, why am I going to move here? I need my space. You know, I want my space. I don't want to be in crowded, small little ways. I tell you, this last weekend, I was coming back I was out of town for a few days, and I was at LaGuardia, and I was in a line with a bunch of people. There must have been 100 people in a line waiting. And there was this guy in front of me, and he's listening to his headphones. We're all passing the time. He must have been in line a half hour, 45 minutes for something. And then I like tap him on the shoulder. I say, hey, he pulls off his headphones. Say, hey, you from around here? He goes, no. I go, yeah, I'm trying to figure out, like, what's going on? Why are we waiting so long? He's like, I heard New York just kind of wait for everything, you know, and it just takes a while. Yeah, but this is not supposed to happen. I start talking to him. Oh, where are you from? And we have this great conversation. He's like, well, once he learned about my story, and I'm a minister in Manhattan, he's like, whoa, everyone thinks I'm lying when I tell him that. I don't know why. No, really, what do you do? No, I'm a minister. Administer? You're an administrator? No, I'm like a minister, like a preacher, pastor, that kind of thing. Wow, really? Tell me about that. People are always interested, and so I was explaining what I do and how we moved here from Los Angeles 2.5 years ago. And he's like, why would you ever do that? He's like, I'm from Atlanta, and I visit New York, but I would never move here. And I said, actually, I've fallen in love with it. I've fallen in love with the city, and I started going off about